Hello, hello. First of all, today we are reading this book. Yeah, I think the cover of the book looks pretty nice. It's 20s girl, and of course we are not going to read all of it today. So we need a little bit more than half an hour. But I hope that we are going to read enough for you to get interested, so that you can actually enjoy this book on its own. It's not a recent book, so I'm sure you can find it online. So today we start by reading chapter 9, and well, it's not chapter 1, as you understand, and nor number 2, 3, or 4. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an intro so that you understand what's happening. So we have Lara, the main character, and we can't say that she is quite a success in love, okay? But however she tries, well, the book starts a bit differently from all those love affairs that she's been through. She attends a funeral of her aunt. Her aunt dies at the age of 105, which is a lot. And when the vicar asks her and the family, what is it about their aunt that they would like her to mention at the ceremony, none of them can say anything. So sadly, they realize that there is very little, almost nothing, they remember about their old auntie. And perhaps that triggers the following event. The spirit of her aunt, called Sadie, springs up and joins Lara in her adventures in London. And so in chapter 9, Lara and Sadie, the spirit of her great-grand auntie, are at a cafe where Lara's ex invited his new potential girlfriend. And we are going to find out how it starts, continues, and perhaps we're going to leave a little bit of an intrigue for the end of it. Okay? So let's start. Sometimes when I can't get to sleep, I imagine all the rules I would invent if I ever got to be in charge of the world. There are quite a few which involve ex-boyfriends, as it happens, and now I've got a new one. Ex-boyfriends shall not be allowed to take another girl back to the special restaurant they used to go to with their previous girlfriend. I think it's a very good rule. Don't you? I still can't believe Josh is taking this girl to Bistro Martin. How can he? It's our place. We had our first date there, for God's sake. He's totally betraying all our memories. It's as if our whole relationship is an Etch-a-Sketch and he's deliberately shaking it clean and drawing a new picture and forgetting all about the old, much better and more interesting picture we used to be there. Okay, so betraying all our memories. Very often you would say people betray each other, but here, in this context, the memories are being betrayed, and that's something to remember. And then this interesting thing, Etch-a-Sketch. Maybe, well, while you were kids, it's not as if you've grown into settled grown-ups, but still, you might have had a kind of a thing where you would draw with an electronic pencil something, And then you would shake it, and then the picture disappears, and then you can draw and redraw again and again. I think this is a kind of an instrument, a kind of an well, I wouldn't call it an instrument really, an object that Lara is talking about here. So her rule is quite clear. Besides which, we've only just broken up. How can he be dating another girl after only 6 weeks? Doesn't he know anything? Rushing blindly into a new relationship is never the answer. In fact, it will probably make him really unhappy. I could have told him that if he'd asked me. It's 12:30 on Saturday, and I've been sitting here for 20 minutes. I know the restaurant so well, I've been able to plan things perfectly. I'm in the corner, tucked out of sight, wearing a baseball cap just to be on the safe side. The restaurant's one of those bustling brasseries with lots of tables and plants and hooks for coats, so I'm easily able to blend into the background. Josh is booked at one of the big wooden tables in the window. I peeked at the reservations list. I have a pretty good view of it from my corner seat, so I'll be able to study this so-called Marie pretty carefully and watch their body language. See, Lyra has a plan. Okay, what about the words that she's got in here in this narrative of hers? Rushing into a new relationship, not starting it, but rushing into it. So moving from breaking up with one girl and then almost immediately starting a new one, and that would be called a rush. Okay, so of course you've heard about the gold rush in the United States back in the 19th century, and that's a rush which is, you can also have a rush on your skin, yeah, with all those red pimples coming up, but that's a different rush when you feel empty and lonely and you think another person is going to compensate for that. So this is what you do, you rush into a new relationship. Well, that's a big no, actually. Tucked out of sight, another expression in here. So usually we would say that we are tucked in bed when you have your blanket around you so that no mosquito can pop into your little harmonious place in bed. So you are tucked in bed. But here in this context, she's tucked out of sight. So she's very secretly seated. She has secretly seated herself, so no one can see her. Bustling brasserie, bustling, lots of people moving from one place to another, lots of people asking for the bills, lots of people coming in, maybe having a row here or there. So it's busy, it's a busy place. Blend into the background. Well, I'm sure here you have no difficulty understanding what's blend. I mean, practically all of us have heard of a blender. Without it, no milkshake would be possible. So to blend into the background would be, you know, becoming a part of the background. So this is what Lara is doing here. So far, so good, yeah? But you can always chat to me, right? So you can always write a message if you feel like you would like to talk about something. Okay, so what was there? So, right, so she says, I'll be able to study this so-called Marie pretty carefully and watch their body language. Even better, I'll be able to listen to their conversation because I've bugged the table. Okay, this isn't a joke. I've genuinely bugged it. 3 days ago, I went online and bought a tiny remote microphone in a pack called My First Spy Kit. When it arrived, I realized it was designed for 10-year-old boys rather than adult ex-girlfriends, as it also came with the plastic spy's logbook and cool code cracker. But so what? I've tested it out and it works. It only has a range of 20 feet, but that's all I need. 10 minutes ago, I casually sauntered past the table, pretended to drop something, and slapped the tiny sticky pad of the microphone on the underside of the table. The earpiece is hidden under the baseball cap. I just have to switch it on when I'm ready. Okay, so Lara here is clever, right? So she knows how to get it all fixed and ready so that she could spy on her ex-boyfriend. So how is she going to spy? First of all, she's bugged the table. There are lots of bugs in summer all around, but that's not a real bug. So it's some kind of a mechanism that is going to help her hear, or I would rather say overhear, the conversation at a table, which is not so far away. It's 20 feet away, so that works for her. A bit of a grammar for you here. So interestingly, she uses comparison here by having the structure rather than inside the sentence. And I thought that that's a cute thing to say. So she's not saying, I realized it was designed for 10-year-old boys rather than adult ex-friends, instead of that we might have said. But she is using it very elegantly here. I mean, the comparison with the help of rather than. So I thought that I would pay your attention to this little bit. And then the earpiece, right? So I have my earpiece in my ear. You might be using yours now. So I think all this mechanics is known to you, is it not? Yeah, would you do the same, by the way? Would you bug the table at a restaurant? Would you spy to get to know what your ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend is thinking? Would you do that? Let me know, okay? So send a message in the chat, yes or no, and then we'll check how many people say yes and how many people say no. So then you won't go to that restaurant where these people are going to be sitting. So I just have to switch it on when I'm ready. And okay, I know you shouldn't spy on people, okay? So she knows the social rules. You shouldn't spy on people. I know I'm doing a morally wrong thing. In fact, I had a big argument with Sadie about it. Remember? Great-grand aunt, Sadie? First, she said I shouldn't come here at all. Then, when it was obvious she was going to lose that one, she said if I was that desperate to know what Josh was going to talk about, I should just sit near the table and eavesdrop. What's the difference? If you are listening in, you're listening in, whether you are 2 feet or 10 feet away. See, justifications. The point is, when it comes to love, there's a different set of morals. All is fair in love or war. It's for the greater good. Like those people at Bleachley cracking German codes. That was an invasion of privacy too, if you think about it. But they didn't care, did they? I have an image of myself happily married to Josh, sitting around at Sunday lunch and saying to my children, you know, I very nearly didn't bug Daddy's table. And then none of you would be here. Okay, so she's a little bit of a dreamer. So again, spy on people, eavesdrop, okay, so overhearing someone's conversation, so that you are sort of passing by, but at the same time you can clearly hear what people are saying, and maybe information that they're sharing is maybe worth of something to you. The greater good. I have pointed it out because simply of the fact that I think you have a philosophy course, maybe when you are year 1 or year 2 students, and there is this philosophical movement which has a slogan, the greatest good for the greatest number. And that would be fantastic if you would do your research a little bit, or maybe you already know what philosophical movement is that, with this kind of slogan, the greatest good for the greatest number, and you can share that in the chat, okay? Because it comes directly from there, and a lot of Anglo-Saxon people live according to that philosophical idea. So Sadie, your great-grandmother, no longer alive, couldn't convince her in not spying on Josh. "I think he's coming now," Sadie suddenly says beside me. I finally talked her into being my assistant, although all she's done so far is wander about the restaurant saying despairing things about people's outfits. I risk a tiny glance towards the door and feel a roller coaster lurch. Oh God, Sadie's right, it's him and her. They are together. Why are they together? Okay, don't freak out. Don't imagine them walking up in bed all sleepy and sex satisfied. There could be lots of other perfectly reasonable explanations. Maybe they met at the tube or something. I take a deep gulp of wine, then raise my eyes again. I don't know who to study first, Josh or her. Of course, girl chooses girl. She chooses her. Her. She's blonde, quite skinny, in orange pedal pushers and one of those crisp white sleeveless tops that women wear in ads for low-fat yogurt or toothpaste. I think you can immediately have the picture in your heads, don't you? Well, feel a roller coaster lurch. Well, a feeling that you might have experienced in your life when you go on a roller coaster, and once going up to the top, you suddenly go down very quickly. And that's the feeling that kind of catches you inside your stomach. And that would be this roller coaster lurch. Okay. To risk a glance. I thought that's a beautiful combination of words. And so I highlighted that for you. So risk, not only taking risk or being risky, but also risk a glance. So giving yourself a permission to look at something or someone for an extremely short while. So that is a description of her. The kind of top you can only wear if you're good at ironing, which just shows how tedious she must be. Her arms are tanned and there are streaks in her hair, as though she's been on holiday. Well, no wonder. Lara is jealous. This is what we know for sure, 100%. As I shift my gaze to Josh, I feel my stomach go all slithery. Like, oh, he's just Josh. Same fair, floppy hair, same goofy, lopsided grin as he greets the maître. Same faded jeans, same canvas sneakers, some cool Japanese label I've never quite got the hand of pronouncing. Same shirt. Hang on. I stare at him in disbelieving shock. That's the shirt I gave him for his birthday. How can he be doing this? Does he have no heart? He's wearing my shirt in our place. And he's smiling at this girl as though no one exists but her. Well, you see that Lara is not only upset, but she's also very jealous. Okay. Well, goofy, lopsided grin. Yeah, so when you have a smile that is very inviting and the person in front of you understands that you like the person very much. Streaks in hair, maybe some highlights in the hair, being different in terms of color in contrast to other hairs that she's got. Yeah. Now he's taking your arm and making some joke which I can't hear, but which makes her throw back her head and laugh with her toothpaste and white teeth. They look very well suited, says Sadie brightly in my ear. No, they don't, I mutter. Be quiet. The maître d'œuvre is showing them to the window table. Keeping my head down, I reach into my pocket and switch on the remote control for the microphone. The sound is faint and buzzy, but I can just about hear his voice. Totally wasn't paying attention. Of course, it turns out the bloody sat-nav has sent me to completely the wrong Notre Dame. He gives her a charming grin and she giggles. I almost want to leap up front my table. I'm so livid. That's our anecdote. Well, you see what's happening. Lara is so livid. She's so angry that she is ready to jump out of the table that she sits at and join Josh at his table to say, hey, you're telling our story. It was our navigator, and our navigator showed us a different direction. So we ended up at a different Notre Dame. But let's see what happens next. That happened to us. We ended up at the wrong Notre Dame in Paris, and we never saw the real one. Has he forgotten he was with me? Is he just editing me out of his life? He looks very happy, don't you think? Observed Sadie. He's not happy. I give her a venomous glare. He's in total denial. They are ordering a bottle of wine now. Great. Now I have to watch them gel all merry. I take a few olives and munch disconsolately. Sadie has slid into the seat opposite and is watching me with a trace of pity. I warned you, never be a trailer. I'm not being a trailer. I'm just trying to understand him. I swirl my wine around a few times. We ended so suddenly. He just cut me off. A couple of words here. Munch disconsolately. So when you munch, it means you eat very quickly. And sometimes you know how people do that. They become upset or they worry about something. So they start eating things. So without any control of what they are eating. So this is what is happening with olives here. Well, olives is good. Okay, so it's a good piece of food, but still, so she's eating them disconsolately. So absolutely without any conscientious idea of what she's doing. Okay. And then she's swirling her wine, so she's moving it in her glass without drinking it, so being a little bit maybe caught in her reveries about Josh. I wanted to work at our relationship, you know. I wanted to talk things through. Like, was it the commitment thing or was there something else? But he wouldn't. He didn't give me a chance. I glance over at Josh, who is smiling at Marie while the waiter uncorks a bottle. I could be watching our own first date. It was just the same, all smiles and amusing little stories and wine. Where did it go wrong? How did I end up sitting in the corner bugging him? And then the solution hits me with total clarity. I lean over towards Sadie with sudden urgency. Go and ask him. Ask him what? She makes a face. Where it went wrong. Ask Josh what was wrong with me. Get him to speak out loud the way you did with Ed Harrison. Then I'll know. I can't do that, she objects at once. Yes, you can. Get inside his head. Make him talk. This is the only way I can get to him. I break off as a waitress approaches the table, her notepad out. Oh, hi. I'd love some soup. Thanks. As the waitress moves off, I gaze entreatingly at Sadie. Please, I've come all this way. I've made all this effort. There is a moment's silence. Then Sadie rolls her eyes. Very well. She disappears, then a moment later reappears right by Josh's table. Remember, Sadie's a ghost. I watch my heart suddenly galloping. I push my earpiece more firmly into my ear, ignoring the buzz and listening to Marie rippling laugh as she tells some story about horse riding. She's got a faint Irish brogue, which I didn't notice before. As I glance over, I see Josh topping up her glass of wine. Okay. So she breaks off, she stops speaking when the waitress approaches the table, and Marie has a faint Irish brogue, a kind of an accent that Lara can recognize. And if you've been listening to Bloody History of Britain, so now you know that although there are a lot of things happening, I mean, along friend line, let's say, between England and Ireland and all of that, or I would say Northern Ireland and Ireland that's not in a part of the UK, there is still this little thing about their cultural heritage that doesn't make them quite friendly towards each other. Okay, so that's why there is this cultural note here, a faint Irish brogue. So there is something that Lara already doesn't like about this Marie. Your childhood sounds amazing, he's saying. You have to tell me more. What do you want to know? She laughs, breaking off a piece of bread, but not putting it in her mouth. I notice. Everything, he smiles. Could take a while. I'm in no hurry. Josh's voice has deepened a smidgen. I'm watching in horror. They've got that whole eyes meeting frisony thing going on. Any minute now, he'll take your hand, or even worse. What says you waiting for? Well, I was born in Dublin, she smiles, third of three. Why did you break up with Lara? Said his voice is so piercing through my earpiece. Intrigue, yeah? So eyes meeting frisony. So their eyes are kind of being glued towards each other, so they don't notice the world around them. It's just about him and her together. Okay, so some kind of a little bit of hypnosis, maybe, right? So why did you break up with Lara? Said his voice is so piercing through my earpiece. I nearly jumped out of my chair. I hadn't even noticed her moving up behind Josh's chair. Josh has heard it. Josh has heard her, I can tell. His hand has stopped halfway through pouring out fizzy water. My two brothers tormented me all through my childhood. Marie is still speaking, obviously unaware of anything. They were so evil. Why did you break up with Lara? What went wrong? Talk to Marie about it. Talk, Josh. Found frogs in my bed, in my satchel, once even in my cereal bowl. Marie laughs and looks up at Josh, clearly expecting him to respond, but he's frozen like a statue as Sadie yells in his ear, say it, say it, say it. Tormented, yeah, so got on her nerves, didn't give her good life. They weren't very caring brothers. Okay, so they made her life hell, basically. Satchel, a kind of a bag, traditionally used by school kids and university students. I think you can easily Google and find an image, and then you can decide whether you want one when you become a student, when you become students yourselves. Okay. Josh? Marie waves her hand in front of his face. Did you hear a word I said? Sorry, he rubs his face. I don't know what happened there. What were you saying? Oh, nothing, she shrugs. Just telling you about my brothers. Your brothers, right. With an obvious effort, he refocuses on her and smiles charmingly. So are they very protective of their little sister? You'd better watch out. She smiles back and takes a sip of wine. How about you? Any siblings? Say why you split up with Lara. What was wrong with her? I can see Josh glare over again. He looks as though he's trying to catch the distant echo of a nightingale across the valleys. Josh? Marie leans forward. Josh, a quick remark here, a sip, right? So you can drink something, yeah? So you can take a bigger sip, and maybe you remember we had the word there on the other slide, okay? Maybe, yeah, so maybe you can write that in the chat. And a sip, that's just a little bit of it, yeah? So almost something that you drink that people maybe even don't notice that you are actually drinking it. You're kind of doing it, yeah, so with a very little intake of water, let's say. Sorry, he comes to and shakes his head. Sorry, it's weird. I was just thinking about my ex, Lara. Oh, Mary keeps smiling. Exactly the same amount of smile, but I can see the muscles tense up a little in her jaw. What about her? I don't know. Josh screws up his face, looking perplexed, unhappy, yeah. I was just thinking what it was about her and me that went wrong. Relationships end, Marie says easily and sips her water. Who knows why? These things happen. Yes, Josh still has a faraway look in his eyes, which isn't surprising as Sadie is yelling like a siren in his ear. Say why it went wrong. Say it out loud. Sadie is good at her job, isn't she? So, Marie changes the subject. How was your week? I've had a hellish time with that client. Remember the one I was telling you about? I suppose she was a bit intense, George blurts out. Who was? Lara. Oh, really? I can see Mary trying to feign interest, demonstrate interest. She's used to read me out relationship issues from some bullshit magazines and wanted to talk about how similar we were to some other random couple. For hours, that annoyed me. Why did she have to analyze everything? Why did she have to unpick every single row and conversation? Sorry, row, of course. Unpick every single row and conversation. You see? So Lara is really great at attention to details. And maybe Josh, as many other men, are not so good at attention to details. And maybe that was a mismatch. Some other random couple, yes, like mundane couple that you may see everywhere on the street. He gulps his wine and I stare at him across the restaurant, stricken. I never knew he felt that way. That doesn't sound annoying, Marie nods sympathetically. Anyway, how did that big meeting go? You said your boss has some announcement to make. What else? Said he, shrieking at Josh, drowning out Mary. What else? She used to litter the bathroom with your creams and crap. Josh frowns distantly at the memory. Every time I tried to shave, I had to fight through this thicket of pots. It drove me mad. What a pain, says Mary, over brightly. Anyway, and it was the little things, like the way she used to sing in the shower. I mean, I don't mind singing, but the same song every bloody day. Well, you can definitely notice that their everyday habits, do not coincide. They perhaps, they needed time to talk, but maybe they very often talked at cross purposes. Interestingly enough, this word combination here, thicket of pots, you see thickets of something when you are, for example, in the jungle. And to get out of the jungle, you need to go through the thickets, different grasses growing together. And I thought that was a very funny way to put the word thicket in this context. So be aware when you become students, and fortunately or unfortunately, we don't know yet, you join dormitory life, make sure that you have no thickets of pots with you. I think that roommates don't really like that. So you need to restrict yourself to few, not to few. Yeah, so she sang in the shower and she didn't want to open her mind. She's not interested in traveling, not interested in the same things as me. Like, I once bought her this book of William Eggleston, photography. I thought we could talk about it or whatever, but she just flipped through with zero interest. Josh suddenly seems to notice Marie, whose face has almost seized up with the effort of listening politely. Shit, Mary, I'm sorry. He rubs his face with both hands. I don't know why Lara keeps popping into my head. Let's talk about something else. Yes, let's do that. Marie smiles stiffly. I was going to tell you about my client, the really demanding one from Seattle, you remember? Of course I remember. He reaches for his wine, then seems to change his mind and picks up his glass of fizzy water instead. Soup? Excuse me? Miss, didn't you order the soup? Excuse me? Suddenly I realize a waiter is standing by my table with a tray of soup and bread. I have no idea how long he's been trying to get my attention. There you go, guys. That's for today. That was the reading. So we can perhaps talk a little bit about what we've read. Okay, so there is someone in the chat. Thank you, Alicia. I think you got interested in the book and now you will be happy to read it yourselves, guys. So it was very nice to have you. Remember that you can always contact the department to learn more about the department, to learn more about the programs at the department. And we have one more reading left. It's going to be about a faraway land called Australia. Very, very far away, with very interesting people. And yes, Anastasia, there are so many ways of spending time rather than spying on somebody, but the book is great. Well, the book is great, that's true. And sometimes, well, someone has a jobs. Someone has jobs similar to that of spying, so we cannot deny that fact that sometimes, well, but hopefully there are very few people like that. That's true. So thank you, Daria, so much. And yeah, so have a lovely evening. Thank you very much for being with me today. Stay tuned and see you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.